Hello. Tammy Talks Trauma is a podcast where we discuss the myriad ways trauma impacts our moment-to-moment living and how to turn a disconnected life into one of alignment. We dive into personal story and then practical ways to calm our brains and nervous systems as we heal and grow. Thank you for joining us today, and I hope you find tangible ways to live your most vibrant life. Today's guest is Dani Rosenblad James. She is driven by the desire to inspire and uplift others through her remarkable journey. Her path has been marked by challenges, including a life-altering traumatic brain injury, which ignited a profound transformation. Originally, she embarked on unconventional adventures, hitchhiking and working on a weed farm. However, her purpose took a new direction as she discovered her passion for travel, cultural exploration, and sustainability. Thus, she has Misfit Wanders, her travel blog, which you can find at misfitwanders.com. Hello, and welcome to another episode of Tammy Talks Trauma. Today, we have our guest, Dani Rosenblad James, and I would love to let you get to know a little bit about her, where she's come from, what she's about. So, Dani, why don't you introduce yourself to us? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi, thanks for having me. So I am Dani Rosenblad James. I am originally from the States, from South Dakota. Nowadays, for 5 years, I've been living in Sweden. So let's see, I think it was about 9 years ago, I had a traumatic brain injury. It was a 7-car pileup, and I had to relearn how to walk and use my brain. So it was really tough for the first 2 years. I didn't even feel like myself. And then it was, I think, until 5 years or so, I actually felt fully healed as much as I could be. And then nowadays, after 9 years, I have learned about self-care. I do yoga pretty regularly, go daily walks, and I have a travel blog that I've had for about 6 years, and that's misfitwanders.com. I have written a children's picture book, and I'm studying to become an English teacher on top of having a 2-year-old, so I'm quite busy now.
It's very, very busy.
Mm-hmm.
Well, first, I just want to say that I'm so glad that you are still here. I'm
Thank
so
you.
sorry for what you had to endure. Anything where you feel like you're not yourself and you can't get back to yourself is an excruciating journey. So I'm really, really honored and grateful that you're here, not just on this podcast, but here on Earth. Um, so and I want to ask you real quick a little bit more
Mm-hmm.
about your travel blog. So
Mm-hmm.
how did that come to transpire?
That actually started from my first trip out of the country by myself. My friend, who is now my husband, invited me to meet up with him in Peru, and that trip changed me. It really opened my doors of, wow, I love traveling. I love new cultures. I love learning about all these different things, all these different new experiences. I mean, yeah, I fell in love with it. And that's pretty much what started me with wanting to inspire others to travel and get out there and see the world.
Well, that is a perfect transition because I just wanted to ask you. So with with the context of everything you've overcome and everything that you've had to endure, how can you inspire
Mhm.
others with your experiences and your story?
So, in my travel blog, I've actually written a little bit about my past and when I was healing. Um, there was the first hike I went on. It was in um, Yosemite National Park, and I did a hike there with my husband and my dog. And that hike, I think, average, it was supposed to take maybe 4 hours or so for someone to do. It took me, I think, 12 hours because I was in such excruciating pain. Um, I did make it to the top and I was so thankful I did it, but that wasn't before I cried almost the whole way up in pain and having to take breaks and stop because I would have the pounding feeling in my head. And oh, it was rough. But what helped was that my husband, I told him to go ahead of me. He came back and checked on me and then went back up with me. And the hikers that were coming down or going up were just telling me, "Oh, you're so close. You're almost there." Like, oh, that made me feel so good because then I wasn't fully alone. And yeah,
Yeah.
it helped.
Yeah. That's really beautiful
Mm,
to be in a place where you want to reach a goal so badly, but you feel I can relate to feeling like your body is, I don't want to say a
not your
barrier because I feel like
friend.
that's unfair to our bodies, but yeah, yeah, where you're really where your body is saying I don't want to.
Mm,
um, but that's really powerful. I love the piece about people coming alongside, not just your
mm,
husband coming back for you, but also the strangers, people that you didn't know
mhm.
coming alongside you to cheer you along, because it sounds like
Yeah.
that's what you do with your with your business and your blog. And I actually, this is totally, maybe it's a little bit off topic, but I wanted to ask quickly, how did the children's book come about? Like what, and what's it about?
So at the time, I was pregnant with my son, and it just randomly popped up in my head, and it wouldn't go away for months. I just kept having this
Mm,
idea of a little lost dragon, and I was like, what? And it wasn't going away. So I was like, okay, well, I must have, I have to write it because it's not
mm,
leaving my brain. And finally, I wrote it down and I felt better. And then I was like, huh, I think I'm actually going to make this an actual book. So it's called The Lost Little Dragon. And it's about this stubborn little dragon who thinks he can do everything all on his own. Um, but of course, you can't. And so he goes out into the world and doesn't listen to his parents and gets caught up in a
mm,
storm and ends up hurting his wing. And then he's stuck in the forest. He can't fly and he's like wanting to go home. So that's what the story is
mm,
about.
mm. I think that's such a beautiful metaphor for
Mhm.
being human. Um,
Yeah.
I love that you used a dragon, but that's a really powerful, the just the imagery of thinking that we can do it alone. And again, it makes me think of those hikers cheering you on, how much we
Yeah.
need one another. We need connection. We need other people. There's actually, I've been reading up on this, the Harvard and Stanford and any big school institutions that you would think like, oh, we respect them, like they take their academia seriously.
Mhm.
Um, they have found that the number one indicator of happiness is connection with others. People who feel that they have good connection and a good support network are happier, healthier, live longer lives. And loneliness and feeling isolated obviously is the opposite. And
Yeah.
I would argue it slowly kills our souls.
Mhm.
So I love that I'm just hearing this theme of connection in your story. And so I think that's really powerful and just wanted to point that out. Um, but okay, so you have all of this that you've been through. You've done so much work to be
Mhm.
in a healthier, more healed place. And I love that you pointed out like healing is never finished. There's no pinnacle. It's not a mountaintop that we can scale and stand at the top and be like, I'm the king of the world of healing. It just doesn't work that way.
Mhm.
Um, but as you keep moving forward through life, what is a mantra that has helped you stay on that path of moving forward and facing the direction of continued healing and continued growth?
Hmm. So, as I told you about the Yosemite National Park trail that I did, there was a mantra I was saying to help me keep pushing forward, and that was slow and steady wins the race. And, that classic book. And that's something that to this day has been so helpful because it makes me realize that nothing happens right away. I mean, that's the same for losing weight. You eat really healthy for a week or something. You're not going to lose all of that weight that you're wanting to. You have to be consistent and you have to keep trying. That's for anything in life. And like with a business, you have to keep pushing yourself going forward with like social media, consistency. That's everything's more like slow and steady wins the race. So.
So what does that look like in your daily living? What does it look like to continue to be slow and steady? I know you gave the example of someone losing weight, but what does that look like for you, kind of from your day to day?
Yeah. So I start my day. I finally have found a positive mindset to have, and having self care is should be on number one list for anybody. So I start every day with gratitude, and this is a huge thing that everybody should do. It's like look for the positive things in life, not the negative. There's no point at looking at the negative because then you start only noticing the negative things instead of the positive things. And another thing, I've been doing the daily walks, been doing affirmations and visualizations. A gallon of water a day, that one can be hard. Being conscious of what I eat, and I think that wraps it up.
Yeah, yeah. That is the self-care is so crucial, and I think I know it feels a little cliche to point it out, but I think especially for women, I know you mentioned that you're a mom and you're a wife, and so often, even with the most supportive, loving partner, my co-parent is, I don't need to go into a lot of detail, but my co-parent is the best. Like we have an amazing relationship. We work together as a team really well. He is in every way an equal partner. In some ways, because of my trauma and the issues around just healing and health issues that I still face from my trauma. He, I would argue, carries more of the load than I do. Like it's not a 50-50 split. He carries more of the load than I do. And even with all of that, I find it so difficult to take care of myself and to put my needs first because it's so easy to be like, oh, my kids need me, or my co-parent, he's stressed out, I want to help out, I want to do more, and put that pressure on myself to be more and be more and be more. But as you pointed out, and I love that you pointed this out, that that's really negative. That's really saying like, oh, I'm not enough. I don't deserve
Yeah.
this. And I'm a really firm believer that what we do is what we teach our kids. We can tell them everything we want that sounds wonderful, but it's
Mhm.
what we do that really teaches them how to be. And for my children, I have a son and three daughters. And for all four of them, I want them to see, like, oh, my parents valued themselves. They took care of themselves. Like, oh, they took time, to go work out and take care of their body and move their body. And they took time to, be good to themselves. And I think what comes with that is you mentioned the the positivity versus the negativity, and there's that again, there's so much science around choosing to look for the good things and to focus on the good things, to focus on gratitude, to
Mhm.
focus on um another really hard one in a healing journey is to look at yourself and to say, it's so easy to look at how far you have to go. This is
Yeah.
something actually I'm working on in therapy right now. As I look at, oh, well, here's all the ways that I don't think I'm healed enough. Like I know other people who are on healing journeys and they do this and that and this and that, and I don't do those things. So I'm
Yeah.
not healed enough. I must not be healed enough.
Mm.
And which is a healed enough is a whole
Yeah.
um but that makes those neural pathways, then that sends my brain down these neural pathways that are well worn, that are, just the wide easy street to turn onto in my brain that says, oh, I'm not enough, I'm not healed enough, I'm not trying hard enough. And everything that we found in science says positive intelligence or positive emotional intelligence or training our brains to look for the positive and to be
Mhm.
grateful, that actually changes our life. It changes our outlook, and it really helps with, I think, celebrating how far we've come. And that for me is, it's I don't know about you, but I have a really hard time being like, yes, look how far I've come, this is where I was, this is where I am. That's so hard for me to do. But when I do that, I'm so grateful for where I am, and then that actually inspires me for how to keep going and
Mm.
how to keep growing and how to heal more.
Yeah.
um, so I think that's really powerful, that it, and you're right, it's slow and steady, it's every single day. For me, it used to be as simple as, through dark times of depression, just washing my face, like getting out of bed and
Hmm.
brushing my teeth and washing my face, and then doing it again at night every single day, over and over and over and over. And I know for some people that they don't even have to think about it. But for me, there are periods of time, and they can still come back. I can still go through bouts of depression where, like, all right, Tammy, like, I know you don't feel like it. I know you don't want to, but you got to go wash your face. You got to wash your face, girl.
Hmm.
Um, and so it's those little daily things that add up over time. So I, I, I think that's really inspirational and really helpful and really beautiful. Um, so with all of that, with the journey that you've been on, with
Hmm.
the trauma that you've experienced, and to where you are now, in a place where you feel that you are in a healthy healing place in your journey and thriving,
Hmm.
who was someone, because we talked about connection and
Hmm.
how crucial connection is. So who is someone that helped support you as you went through your trauma?
So I met my husband before my accident, pretty recently before my accident. And I think we had maybe known each other around less, maybe a year before we actually got married. And that was after my accident. I think he realized
Mm-hmm.
that, oh, I don't want to lose her. Um, but yeah, he is definitely my savior because we worked together in Northern Cali. And when we went back there, I was trying to work like I used to. And this was what, a
Mm-hmm.
couple months after my accident. And I couldn't do more than an hour a day of work because I'd be in so bad of pain all over my body. So he would have to force me to go to bed. And then he would be working in another field or something. So I would sneak up and go back up to the field and start working. And so he'd find me and he'd be like, "Oh, you, go to bed." So he'd have to put me in bed. So he got used to I taught him how to cuddle and just watch movies. So he did a lot of
Mm-hmm.
that with me to help me stay in one spot.
Mm-hmm. I think that is something that so many people don't think
Mm.
about. And maybe it's just me. I don't want to overgeneralize, but I have a feeling I'm not alone, where we've been through something. We know that it's harmed us. We know that maybe the ways we've learned to respond aren't healthy or
Mhm.
helpful. Like, for example, going through your injury and then trying to just say, I'm going to be just like I was
Yeah.
before. That wasn't healthy or helpful for your
Mhm.
situation. Um, but we can be in those moments and realize that it it comes back to, again, it's those little things that help us heal. So I think a lot of us can have this vision of like, oh, healed looks like I'll just use myself for an example. When I think of someone who's healed from trauma, I think of someone who, never struggles to get out of bed, who, does yoga every day and probably lifts weights and goes to the gym almost every day and meditates. And actually, I'm kind of describing someone that I know that I really respect, but that I happen to meet them, and then I'm like, oh, they meet every stereotype that I have decided looks like healing. So they do ice baths every day, they meditate for
Whoa.
45 minutes. Like, they wake up at 4 in the morning and they do ice baths and meditation, and they go to the gym and they do yoga, and then throughout their day they do little, like mantras and exercises to keep, like little mini, like breathing exercises and all of these things. And I tend to look at that and be like, well, that's what healed looks like. Like, I know yoga is helpful for me. It is something that I try to do, but it's just hard for me. And yet I do like it when I do it and it feels good, but getting myself to do it is very difficult. So I'm like, oh, well, I don't do it consistently. I don't do it
Mm.
every day. I don't do it like that person. So I'm not really healed. And I know that that's completely not helpful.
Yeah.
um, but I think it's so powerful. What you pointed out is that you had someone to come alongside you and say, healed doesn't look like you being able to work like you used to be able to
Mm-hmm.
before. Healed for you looks like cuddling on the couch and getting enough sleep and watching movies and doing things that allow your body the room to rest and
Mm-hmm.
recover. And with the traumatic brain injury, that, you said it took you 5 years to feel.
Yeah, as healed as I could, I guess.
Yeah.
I mean, it
um
took 2 years
it
before I
just
felt like me.
Yeah, that's a long time to not feel like
Mm-hmm.
yourself. That's, again, I know that we're strangers who met online looking to share stories and record podcasts together, but I think that I'm really proud of you for pushing through that and enduring that.
Thank you.
It, it's the kind of thing where a lot of people might not end up where you are. And so I think that you being here is an inspiration, and I'm honored that you would come share your story. So, with everything that we've
Mm.
talked about, I know that you've given some examples already, but I love for our listeners to have one practical thing that they can take away. I call it that one thing that they can take away from this to say, okay, I'm inspired by this person's story, and here is one practical thing I learned from them that I can put into practice to help myself heal. So, what for you is that just one thing that people can put into practice to help themselves along their healing journey?
I think that would have to be the self care that I mentioned that I've been doing daily. I think that, of course, it's hard at the beginning. However, when you start doing it repeatedly, then it becomes easier and easier. And your day is so much better if this is what you start your day off. Like having the gratitude, staying positive, having a good mindset, affirmations. When I learned about affirmations, I thought it was so silly because you have to look at yourself in the mirror and be like, oh, I love you, you're beautiful, you are worth it, whatever the affirmations you want to say to yourself. So it feels funny because you're saying it to yourself, but when you do it so much, it doesn't seem as silly, and you start getting pumped up and you're like, yeah, I
Mm,
am. So I think that's something that
yeah.
should inspire a lot. That, oh, and there was also what you pointed out a few times, is how you compare yourself to others. This is something that us as humans do, and we should try not to do that, because everyone's journey to healing is completely different. Everyone's body is different, everyone works differently and has to focus on different parts and whatever. So it's a specific journey for that specific person.
I agree with you completely. And I 100% agree that it is not helpful to compare to others. And that is part of my constant work on myself, is to not do that and to look at what does healed look like for me. And what you just said, the self-care, figuring out, and I think too that that's important, is figuring out what does work for you, because yoga is not for
Mhm.
everyone. And um being very vulnerable, deep breathing exercises are still very difficult for me. I have trauma that's buried so deep that it's just not, I haven't been able to access it yet. I haven't been able to access certain parts of it, and I'm okay with that. That's part of my journey. It's it 38 years of trauma don't get undone in 5 years. That's how far I am into my journey, is 5 years. And so recognizing, okay, as a person, saying, okay, this is what works for me, this is what doesn't, and then to lean into what does work and to not feel guilty
Mhm.
about it, and to say it's okay for me to feel good. And one other thing you said that I wanted to come back to is the
Mhm.
affirmations, that, standing in the mirror and doing that, it feels really ridiculous. But I am a huge believer in reparenting ourselves, whether you have kids or not, and whether you feel like you came from a loving family or an abusive family. Either way, sometimes they can be a mix of both. But the in general, our parents, I believe they do the best they can. Even bad parents, they did the best they could. And no matter how well they did, no matter how hard they tried, we still have ways that we were
Mhm.
wounded, and ways that our parents weren't able to support us and love us in the ways that we needed. And I just think to myself, with my own kids, how freely I tell them they're beautiful, they're smart, I'm so proud of them. You were so kind to your sibling there. Or, my my 7-year-old is so precious, and we have a little whiteboard on the fridge, and she drew a picture and wrote, love is more important than money.
Aw.
And I was just like, that's, isn't that so sweet and so precious? And just, and so telling her, like, I love that about you, like, I love your kind spirit, and really building them up, that doesn't feel silly. It feels so natural and
Mhm.
beautiful. And so believing, well, I deserve that too. I didn't have that. And I mean that as me personally, but also I know a lot of people can relate to that, to saying, I didn't have that, and being able to give it to yourself, even if it feels cheesy, even if it feels
Mhm.
ridiculous. I'm with you in being able to say that it
Mhm.
does work, and you feel really, mm, what's a good word for it? You just feel
Mhm.
really silly, is a good word for it at first, but then over time it does. You start to believe it, and start to believe that you're
Mhm.
worthy of having that affirmation, that you're a beautiful person that deserves every good thing in this world, just like anybody else that you would think deserves good
Mhm.
things. Um, well, man, thank you for being here today. I think your story is really beautiful. I love that you have your travel blog. Just want to plug that again. It's misfitwanders.com. You can follow Dani's story, and just thank you
Mhm.
for being here today. Is there anything else as we wrap up that you want to say, or a thought that you had that you weren't able to say, or anything
Yeah,
like that?
I actually want to suggest a book, The Atomic Habits. I don't know if you've ever read that, but that is an amazing book to help you um, learn how to get rid of bad habits and then to adopt new ones. So I did this,
Mm.
and that helped me start doing the self care that I do daily. Um, and yeah, it it's an amazing and very helpful book for anybody that wants to get rid of all that bad habits that they have and create new ones to help themselves in life.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for
Mhm.
suggesting that. The
Yeah.
Atomic Habits. Um, yeah, that's really,
Hmm.
really helpful. I know, of the people that I know listen to the podcast, a number of them are readers. Readers are audiobook listeners, but same difference. So I know that I'll have people who will eat that up and be running out to buy that. So
Yeah.
thank you for suggesting
It's
that.
very helpful. So,
Well, Dani, I'm so honored that you were here today. I'm really grateful to have heard part of your story and to have another person that, there's parts of your story are going to resonate with people that, myself or another guest, it's not going to resonate with them the way that you resonated with them. So I'm really honored for your time and just want to thank you. Thank you for being a guest on Tammy Talks
yeah,
Trauma
thanks for
today.
having me.
Okay, well, to all my listeners, thank you for joining us today, and we will catch you next time. I hope you enjoyed joining me today on Tammy Talks Trauma. May you feel inspired and encouraged to apply what you learned so that you experience greater alignment and vibrancy in your one beautiful life. Please like, subscribe, leave comments or reviews. It helps this little baby podcast grow. You can always find me on my website, tammyrose.com, or on social media as @TammyRoseCoach. See you next time, and to you, gorgeous human, let's thrive.